Well, it's April 10th, and it's back to being freezing outside. In the Midwest, after being 80 degrees the last 2 days. April's always weird, but to go from snow just a few days later to 80 degrees, wow. But, let's see. This video, I just wanted to, I try to throw some intro color like that, because some of you like what I say about Alex Jones, but if you're like me, you want me to move on, I'd love to. But he's gotten real good at what he does, you know, obviously. But I try to remind people that, you know, I've seen too many instances where it can't be a benefit of the doubt type of thing. December 31st, 1999, he tried to scare people into a panic by going on and on about things happening in Russia on the eve of Y2K. None of it happened. None of it. And he was doing it with such vehemence as if, you know, end of the world was coming. And he does this all the time, but more subtly. His thing is to get you riled to do something that you wouldn't otherwise do. He had a special, really big show the other night on the 5th of April. He had a segment other than his show where he looks directly into the camera, telling people to fight back. You know, he reports on what he calls the tyranny by the globalists, you know, which he really means the Zionists. And he tells you to fight back. Not once has he ever told you specifically what to do. He just wants you to have a wild thought and do a wild thing. That's what defines him. If he really cared, by now he's got twice as much money right now as he did 2 years ago. And 2 years ago he had a lot of money. He had a lot of money in 2004. You gotta understand this kind of thing. He's the preeminent fearmonger in the country. And he's real slick, and he works really hard at it. I saw a show where someone called in about his link to Stratfor, and he just, you know, of course he gets all in the defensive, calling the person mentally ill. And, yeah, great tactic. Call them names, tell them they're crazy. That's just classic disinformation tactics. Names, crazy, put them down. He always cuts the color off whenever they start on something he doesn't want to talk about. And then he just finishes it off with his long diatribe. But he went this mental illness thing. Mental illness is what he does routinely. Just that show I'm talking about, when you try to rile the world into a chaos. That's mental illness. Because if he thinks he can hide from some global catastrophe, he better think again. You better know one of those people in the Ozarks that has a reserved spot in the tunnels. He probably does. And Alex Jones is really taken care of. You never see the government crack down on him. And he's the preeminent fearmonger, directly insulting the president and the Congress and all the business heads routinely. Nothing happens to him. And he kind of bills himself as too big to fail, you know, kind of thing, like he'd become a martyr and hurt their cause. No. No way. They'd figure out a way to just shut off his network, or they would blackmail him, you know, they'd set him up in some way. They'd set him up. They can set up anybody. And that's what gives him away. I want to get like a group together to rally against what he does. I want him to tell us specifically what he has in mind. If he wants us to fight back, in what way? What way? Right, our congressman? No, it's a matter of getting large amounts of people together and, you know, going to specific locations and making sure certain events don't happen. Real strategic. At very strategic times. But he's never specific like that. Because that's what would really get him in trouble, if he instigated an actual thing. If he's the real thing, an independent reporter, you're dealing with a chicken shit. Because he yaps and yaps and yaps and yaps about this patriot movement, but he doesn't do anything. Doesn't do anything. Doesn't work with anybody to try to, you know, gather strength with the influence that he has. And that's it. That's where we got him. And I want people to speak up like that. Stay thematic. Say, if you really cared, you would get out on the street with us. You would help congregate because you've got influence, you've got capital. And you've got a lot of fans that would pretty much do whatever you want. You haven't directed them to anything other than go buy this tangy tangerine. It's ridiculous. I want people to be insulted. I want them to wake up out of this nonsense and put that man in his place.